Good evening. It is Wednesday. What is today?
May 6th.
May 6th. This is what I have the motion for this meeting. May 6th, 2020. And this is a joint session of the Adams Board of Selectmen and the Adams Finance Committee. And before we get into our meeting, thank you. Just wanted to read a few things. I think Mr. Cowie has just joined us, so sorry about that. Okay. So before we get started, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this combined meeting of the Town of Adams Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. We have posted today's agenda, which included the call-in information for today's meeting. A reminder that persons who would like to participate or view this meeting while in progress may do so by tuning into channel 1303. Thank you to our friends at Northern Berkshire Community Television. Or they can call 1-929-436-2866 with a meeting ID number of 984-7091-0023, or via zoom.com with meeting ID 984-7091-0023 and a password of TOA-FY2021. The Zoom and phone number information for tonight's meeting and subsequent meetings can be found on the town's website at town.adams.na.us. Despite our best efforts, if we are not able to provide for real-time access to tonight's meeting, a recording of this meeting will be posted on nbctc.org as soon as they are able, or can be made available by request as this meeting is being recorded via Zoom. I did want to just, Tim and I had put together a memo to both the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, so I wanted to just go through that for both the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, but also for the public that's tuning in. The last few weeks have brought substantial changes to the way we live our lives as well as how we govern. Mandated social distancing has eroded the very basic principle of town government, public participation and open access to the process. Nonetheless, we must carry on with our duty to keep our town working. In that spirit, we are asking for everyone's help and patience as we begin our budget review process for fiscal 2021. As you may know, under the current state of emergency, the Governor and Department of Public Health have issued restrictions on public meetings and relaxed certain requirements of the open meeting law to allow for remote participation. Under the restrictions, people are encouraged to keep approximately 6 feet apart or wear a face covering, and no groups larger than 10 may meet in an indoor space. These restrictions are further complicated by the physical space that we have to meet. This essentially makes in-person meetings of the larger town boards, committees, and commissions incredibly difficult to manage. The open meeting law modifications have relaxed the requirement to have a quorum present in the meeting room, allowing for full remote participation by the convening body, or the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee may meet remotely. In an effort to balance public safety and town government working, we have jointly developed a meeting format where all members of the Select Board and Finance Committee, with the exception of the two chairs, myself, Christine Hoyt, and Tim Burdick, Chair of the Finance Committee, will be calling into these meetings from their homes or their offices and will not be permitted to attend the meetings at Town Hall. Members may participate either by phone or video using a remote conferencing platform called Zoom. The program is easy to use, sort of, when I have the right information to all of you, and members are encouraged to sign up for the basic plans, which is free. And at a minimum, we have a telephone number for that allows for call-in, but I'm very happy to see a lot of your faces via the video participation. And so we understand that this process is new for you, it's new for us. We're hoping that it's as manageable as it can be. It's the goal of the town to have the fiscal 21 budget ready for town meeting in June, should a town meeting be able to convene on June 22nd, which is the date that has been selected. By combining the Select Board and Finance Committee budget reviews, we're able to stay on track for a June meeting if possible. And we have to take this one day at a time and each complication one at a time. So we thank all of you for calling in, videoing in, and for your dedication, your participation, and most importantly, your patience. And I appreciate the patience of those who are at home watching as we started a little late due to some technical issues. So for tonight, this combined meeting will be treated more as a workshop for both the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. And no vote on the budget items presented is expected. If a vote is needed for anything this evening, it would be conducted as a roll call vote by the chair of the respective board or committee. After each section of the budget is presented this evening, we will open up for questions and comments to the Board of Selectmen first, followed by questions and comments by the Finance Committee. Before speaking, we ask that those attending remotely state their name, as Deb Dunlap is assisting us with minutes this evening and is doing so remotely as well. Following this evening's meeting, if there are members of either the Board of Selectmen or the Finance Committee that have follow-up questions, we ask that you submit your questions in writing to your respective chair to work with the appropriate staff to get you the answers you seek. Tim, did I miss anything?
No, I think we just
Okay.
did a roll call for Deb, that's it.
Yep, we just want to do a roll call to make sure that Deb has everybody here in attendance. I'm going to start with the Board of Selectmen. Jim Bush.
Here.
Thank you. John Duvall.
Here.
Sure.
Joe Novak.
Here.
And Rick Blanchard. Was that you saying here?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, thank you. And that's all 5 members of the Board of Selectmen with Christine Boyd being present as well. And let me work my magic with the Finance Committee.
Here.
Carol, I can't unmute you.
I am unmuted. I'm here.
There you are.
I'm here.
Thank you,
You're
Carol.
welcome.
Jay Meswar.
Here.
Michelle Butler.
Here.
Charles Foster.
Here.
Amy Kupiak.
Here.
Rachel Tomkowitz.
Did you say Rachel? Sorry.
I did.
Okay, here.
Thank you. Craig Corrigan.
Here.
Thank you.
Here.
And John Cowie. Mr. Cowie, are you there? Mr. Cowie, are you there? He's here. Okay. Try again.
Christine, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I think Sarah Klein is trying to unmute herself, so I don't think she officially checked in.
No, I don't think she called me.
That's because I thought that you were John Cowie. So John Cowie is not on the line. Oh, hold on. So I have Sarah Klein. Sorry, Sarah. Thank you. This is why we do a roll call.
Yeah, present.
Okay. And Mr. Cowie, are you on the line?
I think so.
There you are.
Okay, I guess the smoke signals got through.
It did, yes. Thank you. So
Okay.
we have 10 members of the Finance Committee present.
Yes, Christine, for the record, Joan Smeagol and Brian Johnson.
Are not on. Okay, so we have a quorum of both boards. With that, I'm going to mute everybody again because I'm going to turn things over to Jay Green who's going to introduce the fiscal year 2021 budget.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the fiscal year 21 budget workshops. Obviously, we wish that this was held under different circumstances, consistent with our proud New England heritage as a town, but we're going to do our best working our way through it. As you received in all of your packets, there was a cover letter regarding the budget submission for fiscal 2021, and I'm going to read that into the record now. Dear members of the Finance Committee, please find budget recommendations for fiscal year 2021. Together with the budget, this report provides, quote, the detailed estimate in writing of the probable expenditures of the town government and an estimate of the amount of income from all sources and revenue, end quote, as required by Section 14 of the Town Charter, known as Chapter 31, the Acts of 1983. It is important to note that this year's budget development process, including revenue projections and state aid estimates, began prior to the COVID-19 pandemic facing our nation and community. The expected negative economic impact from mitigating the public health crisis will undoubtedly affect this budget in the coming months. Although municipal budget development is always based on estimated figures, there are presently no revised estimates that will allow us to adjust revenue projections in a measured way. Both myself and our town accountant, Mary Beverly, have participated in multiple conference calls with our local legislative delegation, Department of Revenue officials, Governor's Office, and Massachusetts Municipal Association regarding the impact to municipal and state government finance. I have also conferred with other town managers, and simply there is no definitive way to project the impact to our budgets at this time. Each community will have to adjust based on its own fiscal situation. Therefore, we have decided to submit a conservative fiscal year 21 budget as developed with original revenue projections and a companion contingency plan to reduce expenditures in a tailored and measured fashion as needed based on available data as we go. This approach will allow the town to continue to move forward and provide necessary services without any reduction or modification until the data demonstrates the need to do so. Although reactionary, we are confident this is the most flexible and reasonable approach at this time. This fiscal year 2021 budget reflects a conservative approach by level funding discretionary spending where possible. Nonetheless, the budget adequately supports town services by continuing to equip our departments with the resources necessary to fulfill their missions and maintain required manpower to do so. This strategy continues to produce a budget proposal that allows the town to invest responsibly in our infrastructure and capital needs, while also appropriately maintaining reserves. Despite political uncertainty on the horizon, the town of Adams remains committed to our long-term goals of providing efficient town government services and creating an environment for positive economic development that will expand the tax base and financial stability. Financial stability is a priority in this budget as the town is committed to having stable reserves that can be used in a predictable manner from year to year. The below items detail this year's strategy. A continued appropriation of $175,000 to the reserve fund. Annually, the remaining balance of this fund is rolled into our stabilization fund. Use of $250,000 from free cash as revenue to offset the tax rate. The town is not balancing the budget with free cash, but rather as a strategy to reduce the burden on the taxpayer. The excess levy capacity at this point is well over $400,000, which is a financially healthy amount for a second year in a row. Along with the $513,950 in capital outlay as noted, this leaves the town with a remaining balance of $199,176 in free cash. There is no money being taken out of the stabilization fund this year. We are proposing the balance of the reserve fund at this moment, $165,000, be added for an approximate balance of $631,576, the highest balance in over 10 years. The overall impacts to this budget. This budget proposal includes a 3.07% increase in the assessment from the Hoosick Valley Regional School District and a 6.06% increase in the Northern Berkshire Regional Vocational School District. The town of Adams experienced no increase from our health insurance supplier, the Berkshire Health Group, for fiscal year 2021, a third year in a row. And this is not artificially created level funding. It is the result of a planned design changes that were intended to have a multi-year ripple effect on the rates that has actually occurred. This budget does increase personnel costs by 3.96%, operational costs increase by 3.91%. Non-discretionary spending for annual capital outlay is increased for fiscal year 2021 by 17%. These increases are almost entirely a result of non-discretionary spending. Capital infrastructure and equipment outlay funded by free cash totals $513,950 and was developed as part of a longer-range plan to begin to create a contemporary capital improvement plan. This is increased by 82.34%. The overall budget proposal is a 5.49% increase over fiscal year 2020, with a bottom line of $16,535,729. Our conclusion: the overall operations of the town of Adams, separate of the school assessments, continue to be exceedingly predictable in their annual costs for fiscal year 21. A careful review of operational and personnel expenditures was performed to ensure that townwide goals could be met. In doing so, the town has been able to make appropriate and modest investments in infrastructure and capital needs while controlling costs. Contract negotiations with the police union are concluded and continue with the clerical unit. Both contracts do expire at the end of fiscal year 2020. All effort has been made to treat all town staff equally in terms of compensation and cost of living increases while controlling future costs and remaining competitive for retention purposes. I would like to take a moment to thank our town accountant, Mary Beverly, for her assistance, counsel, and recommendations while developing this budget. In the midst of working on it, my time, thoughts, and energy had to be redirected towards our pandemic and emergency management. And we do have a budget for fiscal 21 mostly because of Mary's dedication, her knowledge, and mastery of municipal finance. We do believe that the town of Adams' operations are stable and steady while providing the opportunity for forward movement. The road ahead is unknown and will likely be rough, but we feel we are in a good position to weather the storm, make changes as needed to maintain that stability. Hopefully, the worst-case scenario will not come to fruition, but we will be prepared. Thank you for consideration of this proposal, as well as your participation in this important process as we move forward. At this point, I'd ask all members to begin to look at their budget books if they have them. I'm going to turn it over to Mary Beverly, and we're going to walk through the initial first pages, still under item number 3, the fiscal 2021 budget introduction. And Mary will just walk through once again how she has it set up and what our overall expenses are coming forward, and just a total overview of the introductory aspects of the budget, and then we'll move through the called out departments. Mary?
Thanks, Jen. Thank you very much.
And Mary, before you start, if there's anybody who's on the call, either by phone or if you are on by video, if you could raise your hand if you just need clarification as to what page we are on. And if you are on the phone, if you will unmute yourself, just to let us know that you just need information about where we are. And then if you would respectfully mute yourself again, we would appreciate that. So just please let us know if you need us to slow down at any point this evening. Okay? Sorry.
Great.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Christine. Okay.
Oh, but you're muted.
I'm muted?
Yeah, I just unmuted you.
Wow.
You're good.
All right, thank you all very much. Thanks,
Thank you,
Jay.
Jay.
Ruth,
Start with Roman numeral I
in
in
the budget introduction. Is everybody
ready?
Okay, well, of course, we always start with personnel services. This is bad feedback.
You can meet Mary because she's going to go through the phone. Yeah, okay. Just make sure.
Can you all hear Mary?
Can you hear me when I talk? Anyone?
Yes? No? Yes? Okay. Go ahead, Mary.
Go ahead. All right, so we'll begin with the budget presentation, which is the Roman numeral pages. And of course, we'll start with personal services. And the proposed personal service spending this year is $6,483,869. This is a 3.9% increase over fiscal 2020. We currently have 17 paid elected positions, either stipended or full-time, 21 appointed in non-union positions, 45 full-time, 11 part-time union positions, plus temporary seasonal employees who serve the town of Adams. It does say on your sheet to see Appendix A for a list of a summary by elected, appointed, and non-union, and that is not in the budget book. We will get those to you. The next section of the budget is operating expenses. The proposed operating expense this year is $2,338,180, a 3.91% increase over fiscal 2020, and this will fund the daily operational expenses, including utilities, fuel, repair, maintenance, supplies, services, programming, engineering, and everything else we need. All the operating expenses are summarized on the individual departmental pages in your book. Roman numeral 3, this is the discretionary capital spending. The proposed capital outlay is $175,000 for the reserve account, $27,500 for the technology upgrades that we're asking for from the technology fund, and debt service of $626,940. The capital outlays from free cash section, I'll turn over to you, Jay.
Thank you. So our proposed capital outlay from free cash this year is $513,950. I say that number with an asterisk, and I'll explain why momentarily. This amount of money is used to fund infrastructure and equipment outlay funded by free cash for no impact to the tax rate. This year, we asked each department head to put together essentially a wish list that we were viewing as a capital improvement plan, so we could begin to hold a list of all the large projects that we need to accomplish here in town and decide as we go and prioritize informally which ones we want to program within each year. For this year, item number 1, under the Department of Town Administrator, we're seeking $20,000 to perform our charter review, $5,000 for assessing software replacement. This continues the work in Donna McDonald's office to finalize the camera replacement project that began last year. Additional data concerns required additional outlay of $5,000 in order to accomplish that work, so Donna can finally button up that project. Approximately $13,350 for the library building. These are very small projects to the library. The largest item, as you can see, is $217,000 that's required to fund the replacement of sewer pipes during the Route 8 Commercial Street project. As most of you probably know, the majority of that project engineering costs were funded by the town's Chapter 90 allotment over a period of several years. However, the approximate $9 million in construction costs will not be funded by the town, but rather through federal and state funding through the Metropolitan Planning Organization that is managed by BRPC. However, there is a section of sewer lines that need to be replaced. The programming that funds the construction of that project does not permit us to spend that money on sewer pipes. That money has to be paid for by the town. Therefore, the engineers have estimated that we have to pay $217,000 in order to cover that. I've had conversations with Representative Barrett, Senator Hines about that amount of money. However, COVID-19, as well as the Howland Avenue reconstruction project, has essentially stalled those conversations, so we have no choice but to program that amount so that we're not tearing up the road after we invest $9 million in it. Our engineers have done a fantastic job under Donna Season's direction to try to make sure that that number was as sharp as possible. There's just no way we can fund this in any other fashion, although we certainly remain hopeful, and we can certainly discuss that as we go, including perhaps maybe there'll be a municipal infrastructure package similar to the ERA packages that came out in 08, 09, and 10, and will certainly be ready as a shovel-ready project to submit. But at this point, we have to allocate funds to do that work. So that's the largest item, as you'll see, for this year's request under discretionary capital outlay. Beneath that is DPW equipment maintenance, repair, replace tire machine and balancer. As you know, we have 2 mechanics that work in the DPW garage. They maintain the entire fleet of municipal owned and operated vehicles. This will provide the opportunity for the mechanical staff to replace the tires and balance them on the vehicles. Presently, the tire machine is old. It can only handle up to a certain size tire, and we do not do tire balancing presently. That work is farmed out to the private sector. With the $13,000 investment, all of that work will come back in-house, and we'll be able to replace tires on all sizes of vehicles that we have in the fleet. Beneath that, for the amount of $15,000, DPW equipment maintenance, the refit of trackless to restore to use. For those of you who've been around a while, you may remember that we had bought a trackless articulated unit for the DPW several years ago that was sidelined and removed from service. After looking at the need to mechanize better some of our DPW operations rather than increasing labor, myself, new DPW Director Tober, as well as Operations Supervisor Coda agreed that it was in the best interest of the town and most economically efficient to restore that unit to service. The $15,000 will be for mechanical repair, including the brake system, hydraulic system, and as well as servicing all of the attachments. This unit is able to be used all seasons, including snow removal, including vegetation control, brush, as well as it's a very versatile unit, and that's a modest amount of money to put something that costs well over $100,000 initially back into service. Just as a quick example, we were discussing purchasing a $123,000 articulated flail arm mower for $123,000 that would only be able to be used for essentially 90 days out of the year. With the $15,000 investment, this unit also performs that service, so we feel this is a much smarter investment in money. Beneath that, you'll see a $50,000 line item at the wastewater treatment plant for a capital needs study. I'm pleased to report tonight that we can eliminate that from the capital outlay, that thanks to Donna Season's office, along with Kevin Toll, our senior planner, we were able to earn a grant for $50,000 through the Massachusetts Community Compact Program that will fund that study. That study specifically will assess the capital needs of our aging wastewater treatment plant. The plant came online in approximately 1970, 1971, and it has been only upgraded approximately once in its years, and it needs it again. However, before we embark on such an endeavor, we felt here it was important to take an overhead look at the plant. We're going to look at all of the systems, all of the components of the plant. We're also going to prioritize the needs of the plant as well as break down cost. So we'll have a good snapshot of the needs of the plant, the estimated cost, and a prioritization schedule, so we can do this either in phases, funding through capital outlay, or other financial funding sources, including potentially bonding at some point. But we need to know what's wrong, when's it going to break, and how much is it going to cost to repair it. In addition to that capital needs study, also we're going to study the use of a sewer rate in order to fund the sewer plant. The town of Adams is one of approximately one of two, it's either two or three, we're not sure which, communities of the 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth that still maintains its wastewater treatment plant and infrastructure on the tax rate. That adds approximately $3 now, excuse me, thank you, Mary, she's giving me the three not the one finger, thank you, three.
Some of them.
Oh, hi, everybody. The $3 to the tax rate. If we were to remove that amount from the tax rate, we would have a far more competitive tax rate here in the town of Adams, which, as everybody knows, is usually a sticking point when we talk about how attractive Adams is. So we need to look at that. Maybe we won't do it, but we won't know that answer unless we study it. So Ty and Bond is also going to study that. However, we'll be able to remove that $50,000 from the discretionary capital outlay amount. That will reduce the $513,950 down to $463,950. Also at the wastewater treatment plant is the control system. The $75,000 investment will replace a computer system that's aging and failing. This is essentially the brain of the plant that controls all of the chemical injection system as well as the effluent monitoring system. So we need that money in order to keep the plant online. Beneath that is the rental of a tub grinder for brush removal. As you know, we accept brush at our transfer station. However, that brush simply goes back to a pile. That pile has been building up over the years, and it's time to get rid of it. However, the DEP, Solid Waste Management Bureau, regulates that. We're speaking with DEP to determine how much longer we may have, so we don't have to spend that $25,000 this year. If DEP is willing to give us another year or two on that pile, and it's not critical to get rid of it, we can also reduce that amount as well. However, I felt at this point it was important to include that in the capital outlay in case we are under DEP orders to do it. Beneath that is $47,600 This is a project that has been on the books for quite some time. The town is under a DEP order to repair it. This is the portion of the closed landfill that is capped. There is some swale repair that needs to be done for water runoff. Companion work was done last year, terracing, as well as building a road in order to maintain vegetation control on the non-capped portion of the landfill. This work will complete that work and close out the DEP mandate to do so. In the Cemetery, Parks, and Grounds Division of DPW, we're programming $8,000 for a DR brush mower and other small mobile equipment. This will do two things. One, this will help us control the flood control system that we are mandated by operation of the 1950s law that put the Army Corps of Engineers Flood Control Project under town jurisdiction. So that DR brush mower will be a second addition to the fleet in order to maintain it, as well as other mobile equipment in order to take full advantage of mobilization rather than adding labor costs. And finally, under Cemetery, Parks, and Grounds, the Russell Fieldhouse remodel of $25,000. As you know, we earned a community development block grant in order to redo Russell Field. Those grant funds will pay for the field, will pay for the dugouts and other assorted work at the field, but will not take care of the field house. We were hoping that we'd be able to spend a little upwards of $100,000 in order to redo that field house. However, once the estimates reached about $90,000 and looking at some of the other projects we had, we felt we were going to pause that. We programmed $25,000 at least to remodel it, take care of some critical infrastructure. However, in talking with Donna Season, the Community Development Director, we may end up waiting and do it all in one shot later, but we just weren't sure about that decision, so we programmed that amount of money just in case we have the opportunity to take it. And we'll continue to monitor our spending, and we'll continue to monitor the budget process as we go, so we'll have some flexibility within discretionary capital outlay. Mary, I'm going to send it back over to you for other amounts to be raised under revenue.
Okay, we're on Roman numeral 5. As most of you know, and some of you are really new, I think there's several new members on the Finance Committee, and yes. Well, I don't mean to be redundant with anybody, but let's explain the whole thing. There's assessments made on the cherry sheets. They're local aid assessments that we have to pay. Those total $44,279. The library state aid is an offset, and that's $14,829. And we also have to raise an allowance for abatements and exemptions, and this year is $150,000. So on Roman numeral 6, there's a summary of all the expenses totaling $16,761.87. Very nice, colorful pie chart if you like to have a visual. And then the organizational budget summary begins on Roman numeral 8 and gives you department by department breakdowns of personal services, operating, budgeted capital outlay, and capital outlay from free cash. The amount we have to pay the sheriff for the Hoosick Valley debt exclusion, Hoosick Valley High, is $626.
Mary?
Yes.
Hello, Mary, John Cowie, Finance Committee. Just a quickie here, just so on the summary that Jay was reading from, just above the conclusion part there, it said that the bottom line budget number was 16535,729, which is a little bit less than what you have there. And I went back and I was playing with the numbers. If you go back to Roman numeral 6.
Yeah.
Okay, you see the 31,044 and the 150?
Yes.
Okay, if I take those out, I come up with the number that was on that summary sheet. Now, is this a real difference?
Because
is this a real difference? Or is it,
those are included in the departmental budgets.
Yeah.
That's why they're not on the organizational budget summary.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
Hold off on questions until Mary is done, and then it's the Board of Selectmen that will ask questions first, and then Tim will entertain questions and comments from the Finance Committee, okay? So I'm going to mute you and let Mary.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mary.
Sure. Okay, that's fine, John. Okay. The next section, starting with Roman numeral 11, is funding the budget. And this first page is the state aid trends, which have gone up, but we have attended a lot of online seminars. Jay and I have. I think, Christine, you've been on some of them. We are going to get cut.
So if you folks turn to Roman numeral 12 in your budget books, and this is a section of the budget that we're going to be quite paying a lot of attention to as we go in order to determine how we have to cut. If you look at Roman numeral 12, you'll look about midway down the page under general government, unrestricted general government aid. The amount for fiscal 2021 provided in the governor's H1 budget proposal was $2,555,606. That number now has a big question mark on it. We do not know if that number will be reduced by 10%, 20%, or another figure. So that is one of the numbers that's in play. I've heard Deputy Commissioner for Local Services, Sean Croman, speak at least about 5 times in the last 3 weeks, and that poor man has asked that same question each and every time, do we know? And the answer is no, we don't. So as of right now, that is the number that we're using. However, I tell everybody tonight, it is almost guaranteed that number will not stand as we move forward once the House and Senate and the Conference Committee pass their respective budget. As we turn to page 13, you'll see that we fund the budget as well in addition to general aid under a variety of revenue sources. These are local receipts. You'll see on the far right column, estimated fiscal year 2021. These are all estimated numbers. Mary generally uses estimated numbers based on past performance. However, we were able to go in and take a look at some of these numbers just as COVID-19 started to hit. And as you can see, Mary is incredibly conservative in some of these numbers. So for example, estimated fiscal year 2020, the town would earn $975,000 in motor vehicle excise tax. We've estimated in fiscal year 2021, $960,000. And you can see if you continue down line, it's either level funded, slightly reduced, or slightly increased. So we're estimating revenue of $1,455,686 in local receipts. However, I would suggest too, that number probably will not stand.
I will interject at this point that the initial round of excise collections for fiscal 20 is $895,000. I still think it's going to drop, and we haven't done the second commitment yet, Kelly? We have not? Yes, we did. What was it? Anybody? Well over 100,000. Yeah, so we've already committed $1 million in excise, so dropping to 960 may stand, but we still may have to drop that. That's our largest local receipt we collect. We have a budget scenario. We will share at some point when necessary to cut upwards of $500,000 to $800,000 out of this budget. And sadly, it may come to it, but we're prepared. And you will see all those numbers as we need to put them forth. Fair?
It is. And so our members of our Finance Committee, as the Board of Selectmen know, this is essentially a menu-based option. And it allows us to put together a variety of options based on exactly what we have to do. Rather than in a vacant, unthought, reasonable manner, we just cut X amount of dollars and impact personnel, impact service, etc. We want to do this in a tailored fashion, and it gives us options to do it. If we know it's X amount of dollars, we know we can do this and this combination, assess the impact, assess the financial impact, and go from there. We feel it gives us the best flexibility we can, the most reasonable and tailored fashion to do that when that day comes.
Okay, moving on to Roman numeral 14. These are a variety of funds that are available for town meeting to use. I just want to point out cemetery perpetual care doesn't have a total there. We currently have the one on the bottom, $431,345 in the perpetual care fund. The interest-only account contains $24,750. This year, we're proposing to use $25,000 of the Council on Aging receipts, of which there are $56,000 available. 10,000 from the parking meter fund to supplement the parking meter ticket clerk. 27,500, as mentioned earlier, from the technology fund for technology upgrades. And the cannabis fund, which currently has 40,000, we plan to use 20,000 of it for public safety, for a total of 82,500. Moving to Roman numeral 15, our proposed free cash usage, we have 963,126 available. We'll only be using, at this point, 463,950 for the free cash from capital, 250 to offset the tax rate, and that'll leave us a balance of 249,176 in free cash. Roman numeral 16, there's your revenues by category. That takes all the other pages and totals them in one place for you. And another nice colorful pie chart if you like a visual. The levy limit, as Jay mentioned earlier, stands at over $400,000. It's on Roman numeral number 18. It's currently, with this proposed budget, $424,502.
While we're on this page, I know we have some new members of the Finance Committee with us, and some of this terminology is not necessarily intuitive. I still struggle with some of it myself. So I'm just gonna, as we're on this page, I'm gonna read the exact definition out of the Massachusetts Municipal Finance Handbook. Levy. Levy is the amount a community raises through the property tax. The levy can be any amount up to the levy limit, which is reestablished every year in accordance with Proposition 2.5 provisions. For those of you who don't know, Proposition 2.5 was passed in 1980, and that limits the amount of money that a municipality can raise through the tax rate. Levy limit. A levy limit is one of two types of levy tax restrictions imposed by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 21C. That is the Proposition 2.5 law. It states that the real and personal property taxes imposed by a city or town may only grow each year by 2.5% of the prior year's levy limit, plus new growth, that is an expanded tax base, and any overrides or exclusions. Levy limit can exceed the levy ceiling only if the community passes a capital expenditure exclusion, debt exclusion, or special exclusion, and we have one on the books, which is the high school and middle school renovation project. Levy ceiling. A levy ceiling is one of two types of tax restrictions imposed by Proposition 2.5. It states that in any year, the real and personal property taxes imposed may not exceed 2.5% of the total full and fair cash value of all taxable property. Property taxes levied may exceed this limit only if the community passes a capital exclusion, a debt exclusion, or a special exclusion. We don't have a lot of time tonight to go into it, but I certainly hope that explains for our new Finance Committee members what we're talking about here. You'll see at the bottom, our excess levy capacity in this proposed budget is $424,502. And I would say that by all municipal accounting and auditing standards, that's a relatively healthy amount for a community of our size.
Roman numeral 19 gives you the tax recap. You have the actual tax recap on the top half of the page from the current year, 2020, and then the estimated tax recap for this proposed budget of fiscal 2021. Again, the Hoosick Valley debt override is down from prior years, 626, 895. This budget will produce a shifted residential tax rate of $22.84 with the debt exclusion.
To sum up, in our final sheet, Roman numeral 20. For the town of Adams, fiscal year 2021, funding the budget through property taxes. Based on the most current available data, based on fiscal year 2020 assessments. This includes $2.2 million in new growth based on our estimates, $518,963,257, computed with the fiscal year 2020 average single-family assessment of $147,711, and utilizing the current shift of 15%, this budget will result in an average single-family tax bill of $3,373. You break that down into our biannual payment, that is approximately $1,686.50 times 2, or if we were to move to a quarterly tax payment system, that would be approximately $843.25 tax bill. This represents an increase in the average single-family tax bill. There is a clerical error, Scrivener's error on this page. We're aware of it. But this represents an increase in the average single-family tax bill from fiscal year 20 of $152. That does bring us to the conclusion of the overall budget introduction. I believe, Christine, we're going to allow for any questions in this section before we move into the individual departments, which will be Mary first with finance and technology once we get there.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to unmute the members of the Board of Selectmen and open it up to any questions that you may have with regard to the overview that was just shared. John, as a member of the Budget Subcommittee, I will see if you have any comments or questions to start us off on the Board of Selectmen.
Madam Chair, I have a couple questions. Back on Roman numeral page 4, which is the capital outlay for infrastructure and equipment from free cash.
Yes.
So we have the wastewater treatment plant capital needs study, which we initially had $50,000. We're aware that we received the $50,000 grant to cover that, which is going to do a needs study on that on the plant. But then we're going to invest $75,000 within the next fiscal year, on a new control system. So my question is, does that make sense to do something like that when we're going to get a complete study of the plant and its deficiencies, and then we're going to invest in a new control system, which down the road, if we do upgrades to the plant, that part of that system may have to be changed to be able to work with the improved work that's done with after the study is complete.
So John, I think that's an excellent question. However, although I can answer it, I think it is best left for tomorrow evening. Have Superintendent Rumble answer that question for you. In brief, I can tell you, however, that the present control system is failing and does risk immediate failure soon. They're limping it along, the contractor's limping it along, but it is.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The system will be compatible down the road. So it's not a sunk cost, it is a necessary upfront cost. Bob can certainly give you a little bit more.
So that will, I assume that's going to be a assumption going into the needs study, that control system will be the system that's going to be used, but it's not going to be part of a study. But I'll wait till tomorrow to ask this question in a little more detail. But thanks, Jay, for the response. On the same page, the bottom of the page, for the cemetery, parks, and grounds, the Russell Fieldhouse remodel, I know there's money being invested to run the wires, I believe, to the lights, to the poles which hold the lights, so we can have night practices down there, night football practices during the fall. But last year, I think the softball league and possibly the football league indicated that the lights weren't working. We made an attempt, the best we tried to fix those lights with volunteers, with Adams employees, with the tools that we have, but we just couldn't do it right. So does this? So I assume the grant doesn't include the fixing of the lights at Russell Field, which right now are unusable.
Correct.
So there's no funding in this budget to. So there's no funding in this budget to for those lights.
Correct. The grant from community development, it was bid as an alternate, I believe, and Donna can answer this when we have her presentation, but it was bid as an alternate in order to redo the underground electrical conduit coming out of the meter box and to go to the individual light poles. That will provide the infrastructure needed to run new wire and eventually hang new lights should funding become available. That's the extent of the lighting electrical work that will be accomplished.
Okay, and then we can have more discussion when we get into the community development part of the budget. So I'll hold off on a few more there. I got one more question, this area always concerns me. Every year, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, come October, when the tax rate is set, the Board of Selectmen determines the percentage of what the businesses pay and what the residential taxpayers will pay. We have no control over what that tax rate is going to be come October. So a lot of it's dependent on the new growth for the community. And there's a lot of different areas of new growth. And again, I can wait till the assessors part when we get to the assessors section down the road. But do you know, Jay, the number this year is 2.2 million in growth. And I understand we're going through the situation we're going in, but even so, that's always been an issue for the board, is that when we get there, sometimes we don't get to the growth factor that we had hoped, and then the tax rate will increase. So, you set a budget at a certain amount per tax rate, the finance committee and the town meeting approve it at a certain amount for an increase in the tax rate, then we have to wait. We go to October, we get the growth factor, and sometimes, hasn't been so good. That means the tax rate will go up from what we thought we had approved. That's the way it works. But do you have anything on where that 2.2 million came from? What's included in that 2.2 million of growth?
Donna is here, she could answer to that.
Oh,
I don't have
great.
numbers with me. I can certainly provide what.
Donna, we'll be getting to your budget in a little bit. Can you maybe get those or have those numbers prepared when you're closer to a phone that you would be able to answer that, and give you a couple minutes before we get to that?
However, John, I can tell you that knowing that expanding the tax base and economic growth is important for Adams, you'll see that during the COVID-19 crisis, some communities chose to stop issuing building permits, et cetera. Our Inspectional Services Department, under the leadership of Building Commissioner Jerry Garner, chose to continue to review each individual building permit as it was submitted and continue to inspect each ongoing construction site so that we could continue to earn the revenue generated by permit applications, as well as eventually add to that tax base. Jerry can answer all the detailed questions for you when he presents to his budget, but I can tell you that I feel quite proud that the town was able to continue to entertain these permits on a tailored, reasonable, case-by-case basis during the crisis, and we did not just unilaterally shut down our building. But Jerry can fill you in more, but that was one of the reasons why we made that decision, looking at it from a long-term perspective, in addition to trying to manage the health risks of a construction site. But that was one of the reasons we wanted to try to continue to develop that growth in a reasonable fashion.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Joe?
Yes, just one quick question on this segment. On page 14, the Town of Adams budget presentation, when I look down at the cannabis fund, I'm a little disappointed. When I ran for selectman 8 years ago, that was something that I had pushed, and our past town administrator, Tony Mazzucco, really was pushing for it. And a matter of fact, we were really the first community within, I know, Berkshire County to really get on board for this, because we could foresee in the future that this was a revenue maker for our community. And it's just disheartening to me to see that we still don't have the promised 2 people up and running. I know there's some things going on down at the Ronnie's building for the medical marijuana, but the person who wanted to do the cultivating seems to have disappeared. I don't know what his status is, but I'm just disappointed that we've missed the boat on that, because there's a lot of money to be made in that. So that's just a comment.
Just quickly, Joe, I think we share your sentiment. You and I have spoken about it before. Quick update. The retail/medical marijuana sales company that is looking at Ronnie's is still in the game. However, because all of this is regulated by the state, the town has no control over how fast they move. So the town's done everything it can through building permits, et cetera, anything within our jurisdiction. the Triple C, not the Civilian Conservation Corps, which is what I always think because of my grandfather's era, but the Cannabis Control Commission essentially told them they could not continue to work on the Adams location until they were completed with some of their Eastern Mass properties. That's the answer we got from that firm. If we shift across the street, as you said, to the cultivator, that gentleman actually just checked in with Donna and I one day last week. They're still moving forward. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has slowed down even more his ability to obtain financing in order to do some of the site work that he needed. So if not anything I can say that the town of Adams or its government has done, it's a function of the economics of, and frankly, the scope of both of those projects. That's my info for you on that.
Okay, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Rick?
I have nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
I have nothing.
All right, thank you very much. I will turn things over to Tim to, first I have to unmute all of your members, or do you want to go one by one?
Let you go one by one. I don't have them.
Okay. I'm going to go in the order that you show up on my screen, so that means Carol is
I just
first.
have one question about the health insurance supplier, and is the plan was designed to not have any increases over a multi-year. I just wanted to know how long you think that was going to be, or do we know, right?
Okay,
Because it's been for 3 years already. So does that end, or do you have to renegotiate that? When is that?
Actually, the rates are set annually by the Berkshire Health Group Board. It's a joint purchasing group. We have most, pardon?
I know that, yep.
Okay, well, I didn't know if everybody else knows that, Carol. So we have most of the county in the group, and the rates are set upon our actual claims annually. And the revamping of the plans with the deductibles, we hoped we'd get 2 years of flat claims for 2 years of no increases, but we're on our third.
Good.
So I see it coming to an end, except the claims are still really low. And I think next year, unless something crazy happens, like some kind of COVID crisis, I don't know. What do you think, Jay? Actually, hospital and doctor utilizations are so down, everything's down. We could see a third year of no increase, a fourth year of no increase.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Sure.
So Jay, you are next on my list here.
No questions here.
Okay, thank you very much. And that brings me to Michelle Butler. Hold on, I have to, there you are.
No questions right now.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. Sarah Klein. Sarah, do you have any questions? I think you're unmuted.
We put her to sleep.
I hope that's not the case. Sarah? All right, we'll come back. That brings me to Charles. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Do you have any questions?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Back on Roman numeral page 4, the capital outlay,
Okay,
similar to John's questions.
sure.
The $50,000.
Hmm?
Now, we received a grant for that. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, it's a community compact grant that we received. And
Now,
that was just, that notification just came a few business days ago.
So are we keeping this $50,000 in the budget or taking it out?
Be removed.
So
Will we get updated pages as we do this, I suppose?
Certainly, yes.
Yes.
Page 15 would be incorrect, I believe, because it shows, yeah.
Okay.
I think you have to add that 50,000 back in.
Yeah, there'll be several pages
okay,
that change,
yeah.
yeah.
Charles, at the bottom of that, page 4, that 513,950 will be reduced to 463,950. And then if you scroll ahead to Roman numeral 15, you'll see at the bottom, balance available for appropriation through June 30th, 2020, referencing free cash. That number will increase from 199,176 to 249,176.
Okay.
With a little bit of good news.
Yes, and one more question about the field house, Russell Field, at 25,000. You said we may do it later this year or later in another year?
Later in another fiscal year, funded by a different source in its entirety, perhaps by a community development block grant.
So are we leaving this $25,000 in the budget or taking it out?
It's being left in the event that we're able to do some work to the field house to correct any structural issues or fixtures inside that will prohibit its use. So we're going to leave it in for now as an option.
Okay. That's all.
All right, thank you. Amy, any questions?
I have no questions. Nope, thank you.
Thank you. Rachel.
Sarah's texting me. There is definitely technical issues. She can hear us. She has no questions. And I also do not have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for letting us know what's going on with Sarah and speaking on her behalf. Craig.
Chris or Craig?
Craig. And that brings me to John Cowie.
Yes, I have the one question. Jay, you may have talked about this before when I was having trouble getting on. The charter review, we've been trying to get this going for like 5 years or maybe even more. How is this going to proceed? I mean, what are we...
So, yeah, good question, John. You and I have chatted about that before. We have some research done by town council. However, the research is a little stale at this point, and when we spoke with the consultant, Community Paradigm Associates, to give us a quote on what it would cost to do it, some of those rules have changed to actually streamline the process. However, just as we began to research that in anticipation of a question like this, COVID-19 hit. So I can't answer it. But what that 20 grand will fund is the consultant that will work along with whatever group and however that's formed in order to populate the context of the charter review. So that 20 grand essentially is the substantive work, the research work of it that'll be working along with whatever group, how we appoint and all that stuff we still have to work on.
So essentially we're looking at the soonest would be next year sometime.
I would hope to get it underway as soon as we can get back to normal business, but I come in every day and wonder what I'm going to face. So I don't even.
Okay.
Don't even.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
You're good? Okay. All right then. So we can move on. Okay.
Okay, our first department is Finance and Technology. We'll start approximately on page 17.
Actually, it's 16. That must be the page numbers from last year's agenda that nobody updated. Okay. The page numbers changed.
If we go with employee and retiree benefits, which
starts on 16.
Got it.
Got it?
Okay. Chapter 2000.
So,
all right, Mary. It's all you.
Page 16. Hopefully everybody's on page 16.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mary.
This is where we appropriate money for a lot of different employee and retiree benefits, all the retiree life insurance, the retiree health insurance. Top of the page, the workers' comp insurance is the cost of living increase on an old workers' comp claim that we're on the hook for. Attorney St. John has worked diligently to save us a lot of money on this, but we are going forward annually tied to paying the cost of living increase for this claim.
That's still pending, legal action as well, Mary.
Well, we have to pay, going forward, it's the old stuff that's still pending in legal action. We've paid some of it, but he saved us a fortune. We have to pay for the volunteer insurance, that's the life insurance for any volunteers that work for us that are in public safety, most notably the forest wardens. The annual retirement assessment, physicals for employees, the employee incentive account, which funds the deductible HRA cards that the employees receive, all travel, licensing, and anything else they need. Compensated absence fund, we try to put at least 30,000 into it every year. There's approximately 160,000 in it in fiscal 20, and I anticipate we will spend nearly every dime by the time all the retirements are done and calculated for June 30th. Do you want me just keep going?
Do you want to do your entire section, or do you want to go page by page? Which is,
So I'll do the entire section, then people can see if they have questions.
Yeah.
Like we
why
did.
don't we do that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Page 17 gives you a little more clearer explanation of those line items that I just read to you. Page 18 is the personal services for the accounting office. You'll see it's gone down about 13,000. My wonderful assistant of many years retired, and so we're going to have a new assistant, and the pay will be lower. 143,864 to run the accounting office. Page 19 has the breakdown of that. Page 20, the operating expenses for the accounting office totaling $38,630. Page 21, technology. This is the personal services for technology. Our wonderful IT director, Rob Manook, takes a mere $6,623 a year for about $600,000 worth of service.
He's a deal.
He's a very nice fellow. Page 23, operating expenses for technology. You'll see them detailed on page 24. As much as is detailable.
Couple of highlights here, Mary, I just want to go through is, right now, we perform all of our payroll functions in-house. That's a combination of both the accounting office as well as the treasurer and collector's office. With changing personnel as well as technology, we've decided this year to engage a third-party payroll system. This payroll system will create some level of capacity in terms of our in-house staff, as well as provide the ability to have technology that will now better manage employees' PTO, paid time off, as well as a lot of the manual functions done in-house that a lot of people don't recognize. So we're going to implement that this year. At the end of the day, it's essentially costing us, I think, $2,000, Mary, once we did the.
Right, because we'll no longer pay for the Munis module to do the payroll ourselves, and the Harper's payroll service the difference is, yes, around $2,000. And there'll be a greater accountability.
That's the real key.
To town.
Yes. You'll note under wastewater treatment plant as well as DPW garage that interactive time clocks will be installed. Right now, all of our payroll system continues to be manual with some level of self-reporting. In order to implement a better accountable system for hours worked, both of those locations, which are hourly, staffed by hourly employees, will have the time clocks, the digital system that will require people to punch in and punch out as well. Also, we're replacing 2 mobile data terminals in the police cruiser fleet as well, and most of the other costs on here are all recurring costs for other assorted technologies, which, as we now know, is quite important to keeping municipal government functioning in the middle of the pandemic.
Also quite notable during this COVID crisis with our increased computer usage, we're all on Wi-Fi, everyone who's sitting here, and with the Zoom meetings and everything, we did increase the capacity of the town hall internet from 20 megabytes to 50 on the mass broadband because the 20 megabytes could not handle what we're doing.
The last item I'll point out is under Town Hall. If you look towards the bottom of that section, you'll see Full Circle Technologies, which is the vendor, but you'll see online permitting software and online Board of Health software. Believe it or not, Adams is actually one of the few communities here in the Berkshires that has online permitting. We receive a lot of positive feedback from contractors and vendors and constituents that they're able to utilize the online permitting system. Again, in the middle of a pandemic, when we can't open our doors to the public, this has become incredibly valuable. In addition to that, a lot of our contractors from outside the area have said Adams is really easy to do business in because of this. So I'd like to thank both Jerry Garner and Mark Blaisdell for essentially expanding those online services. And we'll continue to do that, and that's part of our efforts to make doing business in Adams easy and welcoming. That's all I have on the tech side, Mary.
Okay. Turning to page 25, the capital budget. This will be fully funded by the technology fund for no impact to the tax rate. We'd like to get enterprise software for the visitor center controllers. We control the heating, cooling, all the systems by computer, and the upgrade is to continue to be able to utilize the system. Everything updates all the time, and you need to keep up with the technology. We're going to do an upgraded automated server for the town hall, and that's, again, the heat control, cooling control system, and the upgraded automation server at the police station.
Some of that is colloquially known as building management system, and what that permits us to do is to have centralized control over when air conditioning is on, off, heat on, off, day, night service, et cetera, which relates to energy and utility cost savings.
And it's a lot of fun to, you know, like turn the air conditioning way up on people. She's the only one with a coat on.
I can show you, I can show everybody your face to that now. Feel free. Actually, I think you are on camera, sorry.
Trying to manage the HVAC system in a building that's spread over 3 floors. It was built in the 1800s, early 1900s, and has 25 occupants is...
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing, at best. Okay, turning to page 26, property and liability insurance. You'll see a very large increase from 2020 to 2021 for the property, casualty, and professional insurance. We've been enjoying some excellent dividends and other credits from Maya, and their dividends are way down, and so the insurance goes way up, and that's the cost of doing business this year.
However, I'll say too that in terms of insurance costs, as everybody knows, particularly members of the finance committee who are with us in the summer, having proper insurance really protects the town. So it's a important cost to have. And although you may look at that line item and say, wow, it does save us on the back end, and it's a measure of risk management and security that we have to have. So we utilized it for our infrastructure issue, IT infrastructure issue that we had, our ransomware attack that we had in August of last year. And
August 24th.
And we also had a variety of other building issues that we've been insured for, and we've been able to take advantage of the insurance coverage and be able to get the buildings back up online.
That ends my section. Questions?
I'm going to open it up to the Board of Selectmen. So just as a reminder, we are looking at pages 16 through 26. And John, I will go to you first.
No questions.
No questions, all right. Thank you. Joe, any questions for Mary?
Yeah, just a few quick questions. First of all, on page 16, the health insurance, I noticed that it's gone up $129,750. I was wondering why such a large increase. I'm sure there's a good reason for it. And then also the retirement assessment has gone up $64,445. And I was wondering, I know in the past that our town has had a great pension fund savings. I guess our investments have been good. And that would be my first question I'd like you to answer, as far as how are our town pension funds doing?
Our town pension funds are down several $1 million. I'm going to say about $8 million. That was the hit we took in March. They are climbing back up. Everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's invested in the stock market, and on March the 31st, we moved all our assets out of commercial stock market funds into the state's public retirement investment trust. This is part of the state PAREX system. The state teachers' retirement is in this fund that's called PRIT. Mass State Police are in it, and we felt moving into this fund would protect our funds long into the future. And they will climb back up along with everyone else's, and I'm confident that we'll be fine.
Okay, and just quickly, the reason for the increase in the Berkshire Health Group, I was told during this meeting that it hasn't gone up, the health cost, but for some reason the health insurance has gone up appreciably.
Well, we have to budget for the new retirees.
Right.
And 4 of them have family plans.
Yep.
And another 4 are on the HMO single, and I think there were 6 new medics. So even though the price of the insurance is level, the number of people to insure increased dramatically.
Okay.
For 2021.
And one thing I want to say, and I was going to ask about the retirement assessment going up, just a quick answer on that.
The state calculates our liability, and they split it up between the entities, the town, the school, the fire district, the housing authority, and the solid waste district, and we have to pay whatever they say. Okay, well, that's what we got to do. And then on page 26, you just talked about that going up $30,000 roughly. Did anything, our insurance, did anything have to do with the use of our insurance? For instance, when we had some trouble in the library and we needed to use our insurance, does that make our insurance automatically go up if you use it to a large extent? No, they do factor in a certain percentage of use, but the library was before your time, at least 3 years ago. It's just the times, Joe. It's just a bad year.
Okay, and just my last one is a comment, and I think that I'm glad to see the upgrading of technology, because I believe good technology pays for itself in time, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Jim?
I have nothing.
Okay. Rick?
I have nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. So I will close the questions and comments from the Board of Selectmen, and I will open it up to Finance Committee. And we'll start back with Carol.
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Oh, where did you all go? Jay?
Nothing here.
Michelle?
I'm all set.
Charles?
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right, back to page 17, the health insurance, employee benefits.
Okay.
Now, the HMO family, I thought we were trying to eliminate that high cost insurance.
No, the PPO insurance, and it has been eliminated. There's virtually no one on it in the town at all anymore.
On the PPO?
Yes, still available. We have
That's not
to have it available by law, but there's not one employee or retiree who takes it.
But the HMO, there's only 7 employees on there. Which is
That's
like,
retirees.
that's just retirees?
Yes.
Okay. They make up 30% of the cost.
Yes, sir.
You know, and they're only 8% of the retirees.
They by law,
They
Well,
have,
health
you have to
insurance.
offer it to them, correct? By law, you said you have to offer it?
yes, by law we have to.
There's no way we can eliminate it or with something else?
It is the cheapest family plan we carry.
It is? All right.
Yes.
That's horrible. Okay. That's all I had.
That's all you have? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Amy?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rachel?
No questions.
Okay, and I might have to have you speak for Sarah, so.
Yeah,
you
she's
let
gonna
me-
try again.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I
Is
can
that
hear you.
Sarah?
Yeah, we got
Yeah,
you,
we can
Sarah.
hear you, Sarah.
Woo, no questions.
But I'm happy to hear from you, so that's great. All right. Craig?
No questions.
Okay. And that leaves John.
Yes, Mary?
Yes, John?
The workers' compensation claim again on page 17, is that entire $21,000 just for the COLA, or is that for any other workers' compensation increases?
It is just for the COLA and just for that one claim.
Okay, is there any light at the tunnel on this thing? Like, it's been going on for 10 years, 20 years, and it's going to go away in about another 10?
This is 4 years we've been making payments on this, and.
Oh, it's only 4 years.
Yeah, seems like longer, huh?
So it's gonna go up, what, 3.5%, 4%, 5% every year on into the future?
Yes, sir.
Have you tried to graph that out, say for the next 10 years, what that budget item is going to look like?
No, but I will if you'd like.
Okay, if you could do that. Then, now what about our workers' compensation insurance in general with MIA? Are rates going up there too?
Yeah, and they're calculated into the personal services.
Okay. Do you know offhand what that amount is?
In total?
Roughly? Roughly.
It's in around 75,000, 72 to 75,000,
That's the total cost?
roughly.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Sure.
Okay. Tim, you're on camera now.
Love that.
Okay. All right. All right, hold on.
Moving on.
I think that we can move on to the town assessor. We do have Donna McDonald with us. And unless there are any other questions for Mary Beverly, I think we are going to let her leave the room. I will unmute you all just briefly. Are there any burning questions for Mary Beverly before you dismiss her this evening?
I wasn't going to miss her. I was going to miss her today, actually. The only reason why is because I think you should stay for the debt service portion, just in case. I don't want to take too long. Thank you.
Okay.
I owe you.
Sorry for all your questions.
Okay, moving ahead to the town assessor, you'll see on page 27, the assessor's budget. This is the personnel services on page 27, $137,510 to fund the labor cost personnel services within that. Presently, right now, we have Donna, who is the elected official. We also have 2 part-time board of assessor members with a stipend, as well as 2 part-time financial assistants in Donna's department. Moving ahead to page 29 of Donna's budget, you'll see that this is the operating expense budget. You'll see it's only increased by approximately 4.11%. This essentially is all materials associated with it. You'll see the line item 53036, management consulting. Again, Donna uses that for any of the property cards or any of the consulting expenses that she needs within her department. That's the only large line item on there. Moving ahead to page 30, the capital budget request. This is the $5,000 that we programmed in there. Again, the software that the town had been using for the assessing computations, the property cards, at that time last year was no longer going to be supported by the state. We had to pay last year, if you folks remember, we programmed in the budget a cost to bring on board a new software program. We did that. That was complicated also by technology issues. We got through all of that. However, there's still some work left to be done on the consulting side that makes sure all of the amounts on the property cards that had been programmed into the old system translated appropriately onto the new property card. So we're allocating $5,000 for Donna so that she can continue that work. That's essentially Donna's budget. I'll turn it over to her if there's anything that she wants to comment on, and we can immediately go into questions.
I think my operating budget is, even though it went up 4%, it really only went up $400. So, and that's totally in postage. Next year we have to send out income and expense forms and forms of lists and exemptions, and the cost of the postage, $400 won't cut it anymore. So that was the increase for the operating expense budget. I think my budget is pretty straightforward, and I don't, you know, if you have questions.
Okay.
I don't.
Well, we will open it up to the Board of Selectmen first to ask any questions. John, do you have any questions of our assessor?
I do, and Donna, this is not a question in regards to your budget. It's a question in regards to the $2.2 million in growth that was used by the town administrator.
Okay.
You know, and this isn't anything that you control in the fall. When the board receives the assessments, the property assessments, several years it's been not so good news. Sometimes it's good news. So I just have one question. The 2.2 million in growth, how did you come up with that number for this year's budget?
Well, typically when they start budget season, this is an estimated number. Mary typically asks me what I would project new growth to be at, and that's based on building permits that I foresee coming to completion by the end of June. So I still, this number can go up because I still have several properties I need to visit, and I have till the end of June to see if these properties have finished and completed. So this number can go up in the fall. But when Mary starts the budget process, she always asks for an estimated new growth number. And that's just typically based on what I have for building permits and what I see coming through on the forms of lists with the utility companies.
And is that assessment or that estimate based on through this fiscal year, or is it based on past that? I was just curious. Is it how far out does this estimate cover?
Well, as it went on June 30th, I have to complete my work as far as inspections go, as far as picking up any new growth I can. And that ends on June 30th. If somebody takes out a building permit on July 1, I cannot include that in the preparation for the tax rate. Even if they put up a house in a month on July 1, I can't. June 30th is my end all date. So anything that is up and finished by June 30th will be included in my numbers. After that, it won't be. It's because of the fiscal year end, yes.
Okay. And the last question, you may not have the answer tonight, but do you remember, or does anyone remember what last year's estimate was? I don't have the budget in front of me here. This year, well, for the next fiscal year is 2.2. What was the estimate for the current fiscal year? I was just curious if we go up in estimate, or did we go down? I was just curious about that.
We're pretty much on the money because when we ran the tax rate for you. We said it was gonna be 2188, and it ended up being 2188.
Yeah, we were pretty close.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Donna.
Okay.
Thank you, John. Joe?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I was looking, I'm very satisfied with my large stipend as a selectman, but I was kind of curious to see that the part-time assessor's stipend is $1,800. And I was just wondering how that figure comes about, how a stipend is given out, and how is it budgeted, and why does a person get what they get?
It's based on many factors, but typically, and in most towns, the assessors get a larger stipend than most of the other officials, elected officials, because they have education credits to keep up. They have to go to the University of Massachusetts. They have to do online accreditation certificates, and if they don't keep those up and get enough credits, they can't be an assessor, whether they're elected or not. So they're typically paid more.
Okay, and just, this is hypothetical. I have a master's degree, and I know the police and everybody else, they get advanced money if they have advanced degrees. It's part of their contract. And once again, I'm happy to serve the people of Adams. I'm very proud to do it. But you answered my question in short, because they need to do schooling, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Saying, the teenagers say, just saying.
Thanks, Joe. Jim?
I have nothing.
Okay. And Rick?
I have nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. I will open it up to the Finance Committee. Tim, do you have any questions?
Actually, I did, but mine was answered already, so I'm okay.
Okay, all right then. I feel like I should have been going to you first, so my apologies.
Doesn't matter.
Carol?
I'm good, Christine, thank you.
Okay. Jay?
I'm good, thank you.
Michelle?
I'm good, thank you.
Carl?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Page 29.
Page 29.
The management and consulting for $5,000.
Yeah, yes, every year for the last 10 or so years, because the DLS requires, they changed the rules, and you typically need a consultant or a representative between you and the DLS, and initially it was $3,000 maybe back 20 years ago. So yeah, we have always had a management consultant to do some of the work that needs to get done.
Well, except for 2019, it's been $900. The other.
Oh, she'll spend it.
Yeah, well, it's not the end of the year yet.
So in 2 months, you're going to spend a budget?
No, these expenses were as of March.
Right.
She's already spent a lot of it.
These are at the end of March. Are the invoices just not in?
Right.
So you will be spending $4,000 or in the last 2 months.
Yes, I will. The work is being done as we speak. The final invoice has not been produced. But yeah.
You have an estimate of how much that invoice will be?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
How much the estimate, what is the estimate of the invoice?
It's going to be close to $4,000.
Okay. All right, now on page 28, this is a minor thing, I think. The 2% COLA.
COLA? Yes.
Is that based on the beginning base pay?
Yes.
Because I think the 387 and 386 are wrong.
They're based on not only the beginning base pay, but the step increase they get. So if you add the two of them together, it's 2% of everything, actually.
It includes the step increase?
Yes, they even get a COLA increase on their step increase. It's just the best way we can show the wages being spread out.
All right, one more question.
Sure.
For the financial assistance, how come their step increases are different?
Well, it's based on what day they were hired, because everybody gets a step increase from the day they were hired onward. So some people might have, see, I've got the step increase dates listed right next to the financial assistance.
July 20th, September 9th.
So there's 2 months difference between their step increases, so I only appropriate the actual.
Okay.
Okay, you're all set?
Well, wait up, back to a question that Joe was talking about with the $1,800 for the part-time assessors. And you're saying because they have to continue their education and stuff. And on page 29, you have budgeted for education, travel, conferences, and meals. Now, isn't that what should be used for their education?
A lot of the stuff is online now.
So are they paying it out of their pockets? Or can
No,
they be reimbursed for it?
if they go away to school, yes, they do get reimbursed. But if they're doing it online, no, we don't reimburse them for it.
So it doesn't cost.
Stipend is for services rendered.
Yes, it does. They don't pay for stuff out of their stipend. It's for their services rendered. That's what a stipend for. Am I saying that right?
Yes, it's two different classifications. They're paid the $1,800 stipend for their service, for their level of knowledge that they have. If a new assessor came on board, the town would pay them likely to go and get those certifications. That money would be allocated and paid from the line items that you just referenced.
And if they just came on board, would they be paid $1,800?
Yes, they're elected positions, and elected people get the elected salary.
So it doesn't seem to have anything to do with education or what they're spending, which was Joe's
They can't be an
question.
assessor if they don't have their education.
But you're saying you're not, you're saying they're getting so much because they need to continue their education, but they're not paying for it if the town's paying for it. Correct?
Yep, yeah. The town
But
does.
your answer to
pay.
Joe of why they get more money than Select is non-existent. It has nothing to do with them having to continue their education.
Well,
How do
there's
they
really
come up with $1,800?
not another elected position that I can think of offhand that needs the class of certification that an assessor needs to do their job on the Board of Assessors.
If they don't do the classes, they will not be allowed to sign documents and paperwork, and they'll
have to step down.
Have to step down.
All right, well, I'm just wondering, do they have the qualifications when we hire them? Up to
We
date?
don't hire them. You hire them. They're elected by the people.
Well, they're elected. Okay.
Generally, no, they don't. They're not qualified, and
They have 2 years.
they have 2 years to get qualified. Yep.
Be qualified.
Okay,
Okay,
yep.
all right, thank you. Amy,
I'm all set. Thank you.
okay? Rachel,
All set, thanks.
Craig,
All set.
John,
Okay, one quick question. Well, I have two. Donna, the old cards, Are you going to be keeping them? Do you have to keep them for a number of years?
Yes, I do.
How many years?
I would have to look it up on the state website, but,
Then let's go. When you decide to get rid of them, would you think of giving them to the Historical Society?
oh, sure, yeah, that's.
You know what I mean? Just for the houses that go back 100, 150 years or so, if people, because I don't know whether the old does the old information get entered on the computer too?
Does the what?
Does the older information get put into the computer? You know, like the new listing.
Yeah,
You're putting everything on a computer, right?
Yeah,
So
everything.
you don't have to look at the cards anymore?
Correct.
Okay,
But yeah,
so,
we're putting as much information into the computer as we can.
but a lot of the historical information, like the handwritten notes and stuff like that, they would disappear if you lose those cards, right?
Yeah, the handwritten stuff would disappear.
Right. So, would you consider giving them then to the Historical Society if they want them?
Yes, of course, we would.
Okay. Now then, going back on this $1,800 for the stipend, I think, Donna, isn't it a fact that they have to take an online course, and I don't think there's any cost for that, is there?
No, there's
like the state puts those out, they have to take them, and they've only got a certain time to finish that, and if they don't finish it, they're not qualified anymore, right?
Right, they have 2 years from the date of election to complete the online course.
Right, but and I don't think there's any cost to that, is there? Because I think I was able to get a copy of, because remember I had asked you about that, in trying to figure out how you determine an assessment, and I went online and I was able to get some of it, but not the course materials, like I couldn't take the test.
Right.
And that's free.
Yes, it is. Before they did the online test, though, they had to go to UMass.
Right. Okay, and that's the amount that's figured in on the $350 or whatever.
Yeah, if we have
Right.
conferences and stuff to go to. Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Sarah?
No questions.
Sarah, are you there?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Can.
No questions.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any last burning questions for our assessor?
Yes, this is Charles.
Who is this?
Charles Foster.
Oh, Charles, yep.
Okay. On page 30. We budgeted $20,000 last year for equipment.
Can you give me an extension?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So you're asking about $20,000
That we
on page
budgeted
30.
for last year, or this year.
That money is also, the work is being done currently, and by the end of June, those bills will be submitted. I'm pretty sure most of the 20,000 is going to be gone.
Okay, could you remind me what we budgeted it for, what we're spending it on?
We have a new software for the assessing office, and that requires a lot of work. Converting it from one software program to another, and also we had to make visits to every commercial and industrial property, and there's a lot of work involved in doing the conversion, making sure the sketches are correct and the values come out correct. And we have a ton of reports to do with the new system, and the Division of Local Services will be doing a desktop review come June to make sure that we have done everything appropriately. And we're hoping to get their approval by the end of June.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we're going to spend the money that we budgeted for.
Yes, it will be gone, I'm sorry to say, but yeah. it will be
Okay,
gone.
thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Hearing,
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
thank you for that. Okay. We're changing out elected officials, and we are going to bring forward, I believe, Kelly Wright.
Treasurer collector next.
Yep.
If everybody wants to now move into their books, we'll start on page 31. Once again, moving through page 31, personnel services for the treasurer's office. Page 32 gives the detail. In that office, we have staff, the elected treasurer collector, as well as one financial assistant. Page 33 indicates the operating expenses for the treasurer's office. That shows a reduction of approximately 2.6% this year. Page 34 lays out our debt service. We have 3 bonds out, approximately $2.5 million for the September 2018 infrastructure damage from that storm. We have the remaining town hall, police station, library bond, as well as the wastewater treatment plant. That is essentially the treasurer collector's budget.
Okay.
Kelly, turn it over to you.
Is there anything you wanted to add, or do you want us to open it up to questions and comments?
Open it up to questions.
Open it up to questions and comments. So I will start with the Board of Selectmen. John?
I'm good.
Okay. Joe? Joe? You still-
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
I'm good, thank you.
Rick?
Nothing.
Okay. We'll go over to Finance Committee. Tim?
Just one thing, the storm, damage bond, at one time there was talk that some of that money may come back, but I'm sure that's dead in the water now.
No.
Oh, really?
No, we're in fact right in the middle of it.
Okay.
Thanks to, so for our new finance committee members that may not know, the amount of damage that occurred during that storm was of such substance that we could not really fund the repairs through normal budgeted costs. So town meeting allocated authorization to borrow $2.5 million. At the same time, Dawn Season and her staff in community development have been working to find grants to fund that same work without using the bond money to do it. As of this date, we've earned approximately $500,000 that will allow us to fund that work without using the bond money. So Mary and I and our finance team here have decided to return $500,000 of that bond money in principal back. And of course, like any good lender, they don't want their money back because they want to collect the interest on it. So we as a municipality are now saying,
Well, she'll take it.
right, so we're in the middle of that now, we're reviewing all the legalities of it. So we hope to whittle that down to $2 million, but we're in the process of doing that. And we will continue as Donna works still, as grants become available, that type of work qualifies for it, we'll continue to try to do that. I would like personally, I'd like to eliminate as much debt as possible, off the books, but unfortunately it's just a necessary evil with municipal finance that we have to do it for some of these large infrastructure projects.
And unfortunately, to apply for any of the grants, she has to do all the engineering, which is part of the money that we borrowed. So as she engineers each project and finds a grant that fits and gets it out there, it's a slow process, but they are still working on it and are still hopeful for more.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Carol?
I'm good, thank you.
Jay?
No questions.
Michelle?
I'm all set.
Charles?
Yes, an easy one.
Okay,
Is this the first year the storm damage bond has been on, hit us?
Yes.
yes.
How many more years do we have on it?
It's 20 years, so 19.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Amy?
All set, thank you.
Rachel?
All set, thanks.
Craig? Craig?
Yeah, I've got a question. I'd like to know what the status of the Grant Street sewer project and the Davis Street Bridge.
I think that's going to be better answered under either, probably community development, Craig. Donna's going to be able to give you a very detailed answer on those. They're ongoing as we speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John?
No, I have no questions.
Thank you. Sarah?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So one last check. Anybody have any final questions for Kelly about the tax collector's budget or debt service while we still have Mary? Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and move on. I'll go back to muting all of you. We just have, we're switching people, wiping down tables, moving things. So give us a moment as we bring on our town clerk. All right. So we will start with the town clerk's budget.
Okay, we're
on
going
page
to 35.
35,
Turn
sorry.
to page 35, is chapter 2161 of our budget. Once again, structured the same. Personnel services for town clerk is found on page 35, detail found on page 36. Town clerk, elected position, and we have one hourly admin assistant working in that office. Going to page 37, the operating expenses as well, most of the standard expenses as with any town office. However, as Haley will explain to you on page 38, this is where we do see a significant increase. I'll call your attention to line item 53810, about midway down the page for election workers. You'll see that that requested appropriation for this fiscal year is in the amount of $16,000, and I'll turn it over at this point to Madam Clerk.
The reason for that increase is due to the fact that we will be holding 3 elections next year. We'll have one on September 1st, one on November 3rd, and then another one in May of 2021. And hopefully those costs will hold true with the ongoing COVID-19 expectations of how we're going to hold elections in the future. These costs may have to increase. I'm not sure. But hopefully we can keep them under, within this budget.
Turning to page 39, Board of Registrars. That stayed consistent as always, as well as page 40. Moving on to page 41, codification. That's for keeping our town code, bylaws, charter changes, et cetera, up to date. That amount is level funded as well. I believe that completes town clerk relevant departments, and we can open up for relevant questions.
Sounds good. So we will be asking questions of the town clerk budget for pages 35 through 41. I will open it up to the Board of Selectmen first and start with John Duval.
No questions.
All right, Joe Novak.
Yeah, just one question on health insurance. I see it's $16,450. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Joe, which page are you looking at?
Page 36.
Okay, thank you.
That is due to the fact that I carry a family plan for health insurance.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Jim?
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay, Rick?
I have nothing.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll move on over to the Finance Committee and start with Tim.
No questions.
No questions from Tim. So I'll go to Carol.
No questions.
Jay?
No questions.
Michelle?
No questions.
Charles?
No questions.
Amy?
No questions.
Thank you. Rachel?
All set, thanks.
Craig?
No questions.
Okay. John? Cowie?
No questions.
Thank you. And Sarah?
All set.
Okay. One last check. I've unmuted all of you. Is there any questions of the town clerk with regard to the budget that's been presented on pages 35 to 41?
Yes, just one question to Haley. Haley, when it comes to choosing people to be election workers, I think I've asked you this once before. How do you ascertain who to call?
We have a list that's approved by the selectmen, I believe, about mid-August, and then I pick from that list.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the town clerk? All right, hearing none, I will mute all of you and we will move on to Veteran Services. And
We'll turn to page 74 for Veteran Services. As you know, our Veteran Service Agent is Mr. Stephen Roy. He is shared services. This is one of the first shared services model that we've had in the county. We share his services with City of North Adams, Cheshire, Clarksburg, a couple of other communities. So on page 74, you'll see the allocation that goes towards his salary. Nothing has changed there. Page 75, you'll see a level funded budget as well for the operating expenses for that department. Veterans benefits line item, that's passed through federal funds, so that is not necessarily town costs, but that's the same process as always. Those are the only two items we have under Veteran Services.
okay. Thank you, Jay. To the Board of Selectmen, John, any questions?
No questions.
Joe?
No questions.
We've all moved on. Jim?
No questions.
Rick?
Nothing.
Okay. I'll move on to the Finance Committee. Tim?
No questions.
No questions. So Carol?
No questions.
Jay?
No questions.
Okay. Michelle?
All set.
Charles?
No questions.
Amy?
No questions.
Rachel?
All set, thanks.
Craig?
No questions.
John Cowie?
Yes, Jay, or does anybody know if there has been any feedback from the veterans agent relative to any increased costs because of COVID-19
No,
with the veterans?
not that we're aware of, John, no.
Oh, okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Sarah?
No questions.
Okay. Any last questions on Veteran Services? You're all unmuted. So be careful what you say. All right, hearing none, I will meet you all again, and we will move on to the executive budget. Dave, where would you like to start?
Sure, we'll start with page number 1, chapter 1122, Selectmen. Starting there, you'll see that personnel services for that on page 1. Page 2 includes the stipend that Joe referenced before, the grandiose stipends available to our Board of Selectmen found on page 2. Page 3 includes the operating expenses for the Office of the Selectmen. You'll see 2, that's level funded. Moving on to page 4, this is the Town Administrator's Office, Personnel Services Budget Request for fiscal year 21, increase of 2.81%. You'll see the details. In that office, it's myself, as well as an administrative assistant. The administrative assistant provides services to both myself and the Board of Selectmen. Operating expenses for the Office of the Town Administrator can be found on page 6. You'll see that that's been level funded as well. And on page 6A, you'll see the capital budget request for fiscal year 2021. That includes right there the $20,000 item that we had under the the discretionary capital outlay for the charter review. Moving on to page 7, you'll see that includes our town council, Attorney Edmund St. John III. Detail on page 8. Moving on to page 9, our town moderator, Myra Wilk. Personnel services budget for her department. Page 10, detail. Page 11, operating expenses. Jumping ahead to page 13, the Finance Committee expenses. Personnel services, as well as operating expenses. You'll also see on page 15 is our annual allocation, or appropriation, I should say, of $175,000 for our reserve fund. As the Finance Committee is well aware, and I certainly do not want to tempt fate, so if anyone is seated next to Wood, please make sure that you knock on it now. As of right now, we've only spent $10,000 from the fiscal year 20 appropriation for reserve, so we should have $165,000 remaining at the end of the fiscal year. In historical fashion, we intend to take that amount and put it into stabilization as well. So that is our reserve fund allocation. And lastly, page 16, our town report. Excuse me, these page numbers are a little off. Going back to page 12, town report, $2,100 for printing and binding expenses affiliated with that cost.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. I will go ahead and start with questions from the Board of Selectmen. We're looking at pages 1 through 15. John, any questions?
Yeah, just one question. With town council, we pay an amount to our town council each year. And we also pay for legal services from like Barrick O'Connell for bigger issues that we have. Have we been looking into using town council more and the bigger companies less in order to save money, or can you do that?
We have been. Myself and town council usually have conversations about his level of comfort with any particular legal issue. The only outside counsel we've been using, particularly lately, has been for labor law issues, which town council does not practice labor law. And Barrick O'Connell has been able to give us some pretty rapid advice on how to handle some of these labor issues relating to the COVID-19. Those expenses are being cataloged and will be billed back to the disaster declaration once we're in the recovery phase of the pandemic. So it shouldn't cost the town anything. But long story short, yes, we use in-house counsel as much as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Joe, any questions?
No.
Okay. Jim?
I'm good.
Rick?
I'll have nothing.
Okay. I will go over to the Finance Committee. Tim?
No question.
Okay. Carol?
All set, thank you.
Jay?
All set, thank you.
Michelle?
No questions.
Charles?
No questions.
Amy?
No questions, thank you.
Rachel?
All set, thanks.
Craig?
No questions.
John?
Yes, one question, small, it's probably can be quick. If you go on page 1,
Sure.
okay, the Medicare match, now it was pretty set there, and then in 2020 it went up, kind of doubled. And if you go to page 2, what I've noticed is where you have like a chairman, the increase on the Medicare match, the big increase is there. And that seems to run through the budget on other situations where you'll have like a chairman and then others that belong to it. Is there something in the Medicare law where they increase the rates specifically, say on like a chairman vis-a-vis the other members of a board?
The official answer should come from Mary because she has the magic Excel spreadsheet that calculates all of that. But
She's gone?
Yes, she is, but I believe the answer to that, John, is yes. It's based on the amount of money that's allocated out, and it goes up proportionally.
Okay, but just for the chairman and not for the other, because it seems to be out of proportion for the members of the board vis-a-vis like a chairman. And I was wondering how they, what triggered that change. You know what I'll do? I'll send Mary an email tomorrow. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. That's it? And then, Sarah,
Nope, all set.
you're all set. So one last check, any, questions for pages 1 through 15? Okay. Hearing none, I think that concludes, list for this evening. Let me just double check. I printed the wrong agenda, so I apologize. But, my friend over there is telling me that I'm correct as well, so I have Tim on camera now. So it looks like we are all set for this evening. We will reconvene tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. I will, before I leave this evening, I will double check that the phone number, meeting ID, and password are all correct. Tomorrow's meeting, it was my typo that missed a number in getting that onto the agenda correctly. So I just, many apologies for that. I will double check that this evening, and if there are any changes, we will notify all of you. I want to thank you all for hanging in there for some technical difficulties in the beginning and staying strong for almost 2.5 hours. And thanks to people at home who are watching. I know this is a very cumbersome process, but it's, I think, the best way to go forward. And I will see if Tim has any closing remarks.
No, again, thanks to all of you. You know, yeah, a couple of little technical issues, but overall, it was really smooth. And I think our technology leader here ran the meeting.
I don't need applause. But what I do need is a motion from one of the members of the Board of Selectmen to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I heard Jim, and I need a second.
Second?
Second from Rick. And I'm hoping that you will all just say yes, and I don't need a roll call vote, but.
Yes.
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 And I think I heard Joe. And I am definitely ready to adjourn. So, Finance Committee needs a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, John. And a second.
A second. Charles.
Is that Charles? Thank you very much.
Second.
Thank you. Are you all in favor? I should take a roll call.
Yes.
vote.
Yes.
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 There's
Yes.
nobody opposed, right? Okay. So Finance Committee is also adjourned. I want to thank you again, and we will do this again tomorrow at 5:30.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.